7,100 target hit, 12-hour bearish engulfing dildo printed, but is 8,000 still on the menu.
Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let me.
Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave, waking up for a very early Wednesday morning over here from a bright and sunny Helsinki, Finland. Although yesterday was quite the same. Where are my charts? Hey, sir, OBS, where are my charts? And yesterday, same thing, raining just a few hours later, but that's all good because we got plenty to talk about today on good old price action, falling up from yesterday's short-term target, which had been hit. Now Bitcoin rebounding back up to yesterday's high of the range, and that's going to align with the overall critical zones that are going to align with, Jesus Christ, man, can I get this to work or what? Is that going to work now? Maybe if I just refresh it. Come on, baby. Don't do this to me right now, OBS. Don't do this. Oh my God. This is so fucking frustrating. There it is. Yes. 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 Anyways, we got plenty to talk about on good old Bitcoin price action day. Critical zones are actually more or less the same on the medium and higher term timeframes, as you might imagine, as Bitcoin has done very little between those two. But the lower term timeframes actually once again the area of interest as all the signals are going to be based upon them, and we are kind of hinting at or perhaps knocking on the door of one of them sooner rather than later. It looks like. Anyways, before we get into that, I do want to talk about Twitch, which I'm going. This is like an insight into my news yesterday. Well, I don't know if I have good news, but what I can say is that I will be doing a lot more Twitch streams, of very, very long ones, at least for the next fucking couple weeks. God fucking damn it. Anyways, sorry to all the people who are believers out there. My language is not intended to offend. It's just a very lazy way of expressing myself because I am in the moment right now and can't think outside of that. So let's go look at the Krown trading application, which is now finally on screen. Great, absolutely amazing when this technology works. And I want to put the focus on the open interest once again, more or less steady here, which still does outline the medium and higher term time frame bias that we should. Whoa, Jesus, man. All right, and now we have no plates, which does still play into the medium and higher term time frame bias that to be defensive of trappy trap moves is the overall feeling of this price action right here. I think is the word that I'm looking for. Anyways, once we get the chart for this, we'll be able to kind of document this over time. Should be coming in the next update or update after that. So in the next week or two, something like that is what we're aiming for. Of course, with the good old coronavirus and everyone kind of running around, taking care of house duties and whatnot, things have been a little bit pushed back. But I think I will have some pretty good announcements probably in this next week, which I'm really, really excited for. Of course, can be found at app.crowntrading.net. It's free. Go take advantage of it. I made it for myself and then just decided to give it out to everyone else. So I didn't actually make it myself, got programmers for that, but once they made it, then just give it out to everyone else. Anyways, other than that, not really too much to update here. Bitcoin dominance going down about 0.5%, not a huge amount. Total market cap more or less steady. Fear and greed index ticking up another 1 dot, which again is kind of interesting here because Bitcoin's about almost a 2x off the lows, and the market's still more or less fearful in this posture, and so it would align a little bit more with a push to the upside here. So with all that in mind, I would like to wish you the best, and the happiest. I always forget to do that. And let's go on over into our price action charts right here. Oh, nice. Now OBS wants to work. This is great, and I'm also recording, and the microphone's working, and I did that 3 minutes in, so no time is wasted today. Anyways, looking at Bitcoin, do we want to look at the 12-hour or the daily? Well, the 12-hour, we can start off here. We did print a bearish engulfing dildo. We did hit that 7,100 target to the downside. Actually, in fact, a little bit lower than that. I'm curious how low we got on Mexico, as that's the chart that I was looking at. Yeah, 70.76, so a little bit lower than that. And that's just kind of, playing out the low-term time frame ranges. Going back to our GDAX chart right here, actually one lower than that. There we go. And putting on the trend lines, you can see that just game of blue boxes. Once again, blue boxes of peace and prosperity showing both ways. So, selling this area, buying this area, working until it doesn't work. Now, here is the big thing that's actually coming up. And what does make me think that Bitcoin is probably going to get a move up into the $8,000 region, this blue box territory right on over here. The 4-hour golden cross is on its way, and the longer that Bitcoin stays above this blue box that it actually held up valiantly above last night, the more and more likely, or the more and more inevitable, that cross actually will happen. And anytime that we have gotten a 4-hour death cross or golden cross, big price action has emerged. So I'm referring to the green 55 and the purple 200. We can go for the last few times. Yes, there are fake outs alongside with this, of course, as with anything, but as you will see, there is a good enough hit rate on this for me to put a lot of what's the word that I'm looking for? weight on it. Jesus Christ, man, I'm really struggling with my words today. But looking at the last death cross running over here, playing this one all the way from 9,400 to, well, 4,000, so not so bad, you could say that. Going all the way back before that, the last golden cross running over here, taking us out from the $7,000 range all the way up to $10,500, multi-$1,000 move. This one over here, a little bit lackluster, of course. However, if you did wait for the next test of the 55, you did get actually a nice move up from about 89 all the way up to 96, 97, so almost $1,000 moves there, even though this one was a failure overall. A couple examples back in this in this piece of consolidation right here. In this ascending triangle, we do see death cross taking us all the way from 10.3 all the way down to 7.4, and a smaller one right here going all the way from 10.5 down to 9,200. So, still overall getting it. And of course, the one before that actually led us out of the last major accumulation phase down at the low 3,000s. Sounds a little bit familiar here, happening right on over here at about 3,500 and taking it all the way to 14,000, and then several examples in 2014. So just because we are looking at this right here, it does look like, it is inevitable that the longer that Bitcoin hangs above the blue box, which is also going to be outlined by the 200 exponential moving average, by the way, so it's not kind of protecting it, the more and more inevitable that cross does come. And if that cross does happen, at the very least, I'd look for a test up here towards this blue box territory, which is also going to be the order block coming in from early March of this year, and also a nice breakout level from our last sort of small reaccumulation phase back in late 2019. So I do like that area overall, and I would be looking for, whether regardless of whether I turn to long-term or medium-term bearish or bullish, I would still be looking for a pullback from that region. Again, meeting right at the upper end of the 7,000s, lower end of the 8,000s. Could accurately say between about 78 and 8,000. We'll call it right now. Also going to be outlining, of course, the top side of our rising channel resistance, which still does paint us in the overall context of a redistribution pattern. So there is still bearish things kind of shoving their girthy red dildos in my face right now, but that doesn't mean that we can't have another extension of $600 to the upside here, which is very much tradable, especially on a $7,000 price point. That's almost 10% move. That is incredibly generous of you, Bitcoin, you beautiful bitch. Problem with this is, again, we do still see that volume continues to tail off, suggesting that we are coming to a culminating event. And on top of that, we do see that volatility is once again still within the contraction phase, especially on the 4-hour and even on the higher term timeframes as well. Of course, it is relevant to the time frame, but anytime that we've seen a contraction phase, this long and this orderly, we typically do play out multi-$1,000 moves after that. Last example that I have from a signature like this was perhaps right on over here, all the way from this was late November 2019 into early December 2019, which was this whole move to the downside right here before the bottoming effect right at about 6,500 before a $4,000 move to the upside. Before that, we have this whole one right here, essentially on the top of this failed rally at 10,500 before this big move to the downside, and the time before that was right on over here on this big move to the downside as well, precipitating that whole one. And then of course the time before that was the $14,000 high right here, getting ready for a multi-$1,000 move to the downside once again. So it's not direction dependent, but it is suggesting that we are going to be looking at a big move relatively soon. And if we do get the golden cross on this, I would say that that's very, very likely to come to the upside, and I would say that this blue box over here very likely to be tested. But does that change my high-term time frame bias from bearish to bullish? Well, I think it would make me more or less neutral as we do go over to our higher-term time frames right here. So I want to put the spotlight on the monthly, as this is the one that still makes me a little bit concerned with long-term price action. As you can see, Bitcoin's still living a little bit above the 21 exponential moving average, but as you can see, it is still an harbinger of perhaps death and despair. Long term, anytime that we've been below this, that has been your long-term downwards market. In fact, it looks very similar to what we're doing right on over here, just to say, and we can actually actually align that with the 2-day dildo death cross as well, and we'll look at that in just a little bit as well. But the 21 exponential moving average is something that I use in traditional markets to judge long term if an equity was bullish or bearish. Kind of form up the bias for that. And anytime that you're above, generally bullish. Anytime that you're below, generally bearish. And as you can see, Bitcoin, having about a little bit over 10 years of history, does have enough history and, more importantly, efficacy as you do look at it, going on right and over here, and more recently right and over here as an efficacious edge. Jesus, man, I cannot get my words out properly today. Too much coffee, apparently. Now you do see that we did have a nice test up to the 10 simple. That would kind of correlate with what we did right and over here as well. Playing around this, you typically do see those play off each other, and our 10 simple would be coming in right around low 8,000s, maybe even aggressively upper 7,000s, depending upon where we actually close this monthly. Obviously, way too early to be talking about that, as we are only in the 8th day of April, but postulating for the times to come. I do think that that is of interest, and of course, with momentum oscillators on the monthly still nosediving here after rejection the bullish control zone, I do have great reason to be very skeptical of this price action, especially as everyone seems to start to get very, very arrogantly bullish once again. I mean, reading some of the comments in my videos, it is. It almost makes me want to be like, I hope that I'm very clear in stating my biases and why, because for whatever reason, man, I just get like these comments that make me really scratch my head. It's like, fuck you, Krown. Why, you dumb motherfucker? Why aren't you bullish? This thing's going to, no, it's not even going to 8,000. It's going to blast right through to 9,000 billion. It's like, what the level by level. We're traders here, not fucking moon boys. There's plenty of other channels out there that'll hold your hand, hodl your hand, and tell you that the fucking sun is shining and rainbows are shooting out of your asshole every goddamn day. I myself am more like a B-52 bomber, where I kind of hover over the toilet and just drop bombs. Today was actually very good dropping. Sometimes there are civilian casualties on the floor, though, I would say, which is not my problem, because Elsa is the only one who could bend over more than a 90-degree angle right now. I cannot. Anyways, looking at monthly RSI as well, this is cause for concern too. We do see that we are still living well below the exponential on it. Yes, we can come back up and test it. That's fine. But with the way that we kind of rejected the bullish control zone and look to be setting up for a retest of the bearish control zone, I would still have cause for long-term concern here. So remember that the market does not happen in one day, not even 1 week, definitely not 1 fucking hour. In a 4-hour goddamn time frame is not a high time frame, but more so like a quarterly, essentially. And that's kind of what I'd be cognizant of from a higher term time frame bias right there. So still, I need to see a monthly close above the 21 for me to be a little more comfortable with the long term. Doesn't mean that it can't happen, but slowly but surely, has to, the wheels have to turn here, and we could very easily get a move up to test around $8,000 and still end below at the end of the month. We've all seen crazier things than a $1,000 move, and well, sometimes in just a day. Anyways, as it also stands, going over here to the 2-day dildo time frame, we did have a very good closure yesterday, and I do believe that we are setting for a test up to the 55, somewhere right around the upper $7,000 upper $7,000 regions, between about 7,750 and 7,900. I'm going to look at how that lines up with the probability chart, but this is looking good for some short-term upside continuation. So my short-term bias once again is, my bias boner once again is, actually no, because yesterday it was down to 7,100. We actually got that move, or a little bit below. Now, because the reaction has been so good and Bitcoin did get a pretty damn good closure on the 2-day, I do believe that this is going to test higher here. And what do you know? Looking at this one as well, let me take everything else off and just focus down on this baby. And this is, for whatever reason, pisses a lot of people off as well. It's like, Krown, why are you looking at historical price action? Well, it's been working for me. is the real answer. Anyways, looking back on over here, both works the upside and the downside. We did have a damn good golden cross back in early 2019 or middle of 2019 in May. Big move from 7,000 all the way to 14. Very, very nice. And then more importantly, going back to 2018, we do see a death cross right on over here. Bitcoin gets ground down below. But it's not until it actually, it tests the 55, and then it's not until it actually tests that area and then gets ground back down below on an open and closed basis below the yellow 21 before the next 50% move to the downside does happen, of course, about 50 and a half to be exact. Then all the way basically from, it's funny, when you talk about the bullish things, people don't criticize you. When you talk about the bearish things, all the people criticize you, which is fine. But just understand that this channel is focused on traders, not the fucking moon boys or the doom boys for that matter. It's about level by level, methodically doing it in a way that could actually be done as a fucking living, not just like, hey man, Bitcoin sounds like a cool idea. Orange coin to the moon. It's like, all right, great. Anyways, Golden Cross takes you all the way from like 350 to 350 to, well, 20,000 bucks. So no one has a problem with that one, but they do definitely have a problem with this one over here. Death Cross once again, price action very far away from the price from the cross, which is a very good insight, by the way. 21 governing price action, but gets regained right on over here. Massive catapulting move all the way to at least a 55, even test to 200 in this case. And then once it gets ground back down below on an open and closed basis below the 21, doomsday occurs once again to new lows, another 52% drop. And that's kind of what I have my mind's eye on right now, as we do have a very similar signature right on over here. We've regained the 21. I do think that Bitcoin probably does test to the upside here. And then the big thing that I really be waiting for is if this area does reject this $8,000 region, and then we come back down below that yellow 21 on the 2-day, that's when I do believe Bitcoin is going to have some issues. Why does that make sense to me? Well, the reason why, and I'm not trying to persuade anyone here, I'm just explaining my thought process here, and then you're free to decide for yourself. Everyone here is their own autonomous person, and I'm not here to change anyone's mind, just to explain myself. And if we do lose a 21, guess where that is? That's right around 7,100. Where does 7,100 align with? Well, if we go back to the monthly right on over here, that would be the 21 on the monthly, actually a little bit higher than that at 7,300. But you can see that this is going to become a big pivot going forward. Where did Bitcoin bounce off of yesterday night? Oh, is that blue box of peace and prosperity? And where is that one again? 7,100. Where's the 200x benchmark average on the 4-hour coming in around? 7,100. Wait. That's a bunch of bullshit. It's just coming up with critical areas to base price action around. So to the upside, I do like this area right here. Doesn't mean that it can't blast on through, certainly can, but it just suggests that we have something new going on, and that's why this area is so critical for me, especially from a medium and higher term time frame perspective. Bitcoin starts to close up above there. I do believe that we'd see a move probably at the very least to 8,500 and probably even to 5 digits. I mean, realistically, there ain't too much stopping you here. Looking at a 4-hour, we do see that this kind of meets up, right around 8,000. It depends what time frame you're looking at it, but if you use a daily, it should be coming a little bit more aggressively, kind of how I had it before, which should be aligning directly with the 200x benchmark average on the daily. Fucking lovely, which I'm curious if that actually has any confluence with past price action off those prior crosses as well. And what do you know? Look at the daily 200x benchmark average. Where is it? It's exactly where you get rejected in 2014, 2015. What about more recently in 2018? Several rejections, actually above it, to be fair. If we put on the 200 simple, it should actually be a little more accurate. Yes, indeed, getting 1, 2, 3, 4, and a more aggressive one right here, 5. Rejections, kind of same thing in 2014, 2015 as well. It doesn't need to be exact, but just needs to be good enough to give insight into that from a longer term perspective. We want to find out what the bots and algos are doing, because those are the people who actually move this fucking market, not YouTubers, not fucking BitMEX traders trading with less than hundreds of millions of dollars. It's actually people, who have hundreds of millions to billions of dollars, which they certainly do have in this market, and those are the ones who we want to find out who are doing. And how do we find that out? Well, usually long-term momentum oscillators are very, very good for that. Also, long-term moving averages as well, very, very good for that. And also, well, some other fun stuff that we can show. Bali has some new indicators in his workspace, which I don't know if I should show them just yet. I will show them probably in the next coming week. They're really fucking interesting, and I've been having incredible results with them thus far, but I do want to give it more of a test because I've only had access to them for a few days now, maybe a week at most. But first impressions are incredible. And also we are looking to list the expected moves chart relatively soon as well, which I know a lot of people are excited for. So I should let you know that that is in the works. We're gonna do our best to bring it as soon as possible. But of course, the more time that we spend not bringing it is all because we're trying to make it as good as possible. Because right now it's not the most user friendly maybe. Anyways, okay, what else do we want to look at while we're here? Okay, so yeah, let's go back down to the lower term time frames. And And it's still the same thing as yesterday, really. Any sort of a 4-hour total close above here, especially on new highs, I would be, I do think that Bitcoin is just going to float its way to the upside into the upper 7,000s region. By the same token, as long as Bitcoin, if Bitcoin were to get a move above here, but then close back down below, let's call it 7,300, that would be damn good indicative of a nice fake out and probably and very likely transpire a move all the way back down here to test this blue box again. That's where things could become different, but it's not looking likely to me. It's the upside's looking more likely to me right here. And I really only get short-term bearish once again if Bitcoin breaks back down below on a 4-hour total closing basis below this spike low that we saw yesterday. Even just a tick below probably does it as well. And then I look for a move back down here towards 6,700. That's where the medium and higher term time frames start to show an actionable thing once again. As if we do break below there would be a nice measure move pointed all the way down to about 4,900, not 8,900, 4,900 to be exact. And that looks all good to me. It's also going to be the 200 simple on the 4 hour. So I like how these things are aligning with each other. So I really can't look for a medium or longer term time frame trade to the downside until that area is broken. Just the same as we've been saying for the last week or so, or whatever it's been since we put in this little consolidation right here on early April, like the first second of April, it looks like. So essentially consistent there. The funny thing is, though, if we even do hit the upside of this, we are still living in the confines of this rising channel now, aren't we? Which is a redistribution pattern. Looking at the volume signature and also keeping in mind the open interest, I still think that narrative actually fits rather well until we really do something different from this region right over here. And of course, this is also a major trend line coming in from our last high at 10,500. Now, if that does get taken out, we could also plot this one right over here. I think I think maybe a little bit less efficacious because I really don't like diagonals, but they do seem to work more. They do seem to work more. They do seem to work okay, especially on these major points, not on the lower term time frames, or at least not in the way that I think is useful. So right now, Bitcoin looking good. And I do think that it's going to get that next move to the upside, especially if we take out yesterday's high. That alone would probably be good enough to get some continuation instead of even just waiting for a 4-hour total closure above, let's call it 74, which we are currently at 74.20. And yesterday's high was 74.66. So what I'll do right now is actually put an alert right there. We might even hear it during this video, or maybe even on the Twitch stream later. What else do we want to look at? How long are we in this video? 21 minutes and 42 seconds, so not bad. But I feel like there's more to be looking at right now. Let's go look at those reversed Stoke crosses. I am curious how it's going to be operating on a 12-hour. We actually are still much erect over here. Much erect. That's good. That's great English, Krown. Can you stop being a fucking moron? 7150 to the downside would actually cross these babies back to the downside. So again, aligning around that next blue box to the downside at 7100. Again, apologies for the slip of tongue there, but as long as we're living above that region, momentum and direction is to the upside, even from a tick basis. And also, we're about to see the 21 cross the upside of the 55 right here on the 12-hour daily time frame, which should be good enough to send this baby probably to very likely the upper 7,000s. Let's go over to the daily as well. What's the daily looking like? Daily showing 69.50 for a reverse Stoke cross to the downside. I do like that one as well. The reason why I like that is because it does accurately get right around, it's gonna be accurately aligning with this blue box. If you do kind of extrapolate this a little bit further, as you can imagine, I'd imagine like the next day or two, it will align with that 67.50ish region right here, which we can expand out. I don't think that this area is going to get hit today or tomorrow. I think that it's going to still be relevant further out in time, but if it were to happen, that would also be a damn good indication that we are going to be playing out the downside sooner rather than later. And while there likely would be bounces along the way, as I do have them kind of overlaid here, I think I'll actually get rid of this one because I don't think it's that important. Very small one, maybe at 6,200, but realistically, I'd be looking at 5,900 right here, then 5,600 right here, and then all the way down to 51 and 48, which is where that final measure move does kind of align with, and that's at the time when we would have bullish divergence, very, very likely on the daily, especially looking at the way that the oscillator is kind of operating right now. It's actually getting a little bit too far aggressively away from that point, so it's going to be less and less relatable to it. So it actually would be better to test it sooner rather than later, as that would keep it in line and not imply that we might even have to go lower than that, which always possible, but we'll take it one step at a time, of course, as a trader should, or at least as I found is the best way to do it. Okay, cool. What else do we want to look at? Oh yeah, let's look at expected moves chart as well. Let me see. Is it this one right here? Yes, indeed it is. Holy shit! This chart just continues to get more and more convoluted, but it's beautiful nonetheless. Okay, so let's go look at the critical levels. Again, let's go back down to the lower term timeframes, just because this one is only relevant for a short term time frame. Obviously, the probability of us any above 7,400 is going to be extremely high. In fact, it should be like above 50, I'd imagine right now, especially on a daily close. But even on a 12-hour. Should be relatively high as well. Oh, whoops, I did it wrong. Hold on. Let's do the lower target. What should we do for the lower one? I think 7,000 to be a little more conservative. Technically, 7,100 would probably do it as well. And then for the upside, still same one as yesterday, 7,400. It's going to be very, very. Wow, it's actually not that high probability right now. I would expect. I mean, it's high probability, but I would have expected it to be much higher. It's actually at 20, almost 20%. So. Interesting. The daily I would expect to be a lot higher, and also the rings are squeezing down here too. This is very interesting. So this is now Krown versus historical volatility percentile expected moves, and I would intrinsically disagree with that, but you can't disagree with math. So let's. I'm curious to see. If this one's going to be right. If I'm going to be wrong. The last time I was right, and it was and I mean, it's just probabilities at the end of the day. Like a 20% probability is pretty fucking good. If you play that out 5 times, you're gonna be hitting it at least once. Below though, it's and really this is the right way to be reading it. While it is a 20% probability, which you would expect it actually a little bit higher, the below target probability is 16. So it's more likely that the upside gets hit than the downside, because that's where the price action actually changes as far as I'm concerned. Let's go to the daily. I'd expect this one to be much different. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Above target probability. Whoa. This one also very interesting. Squeezing down here, we do see above target probability 38.25%, compared with the below target probability 45%. So daily says that the downside's more likely, and that's 7,000. Let's actually look at not just 7,000, because that's not like the big area. This one's the big area right here, about 67 now. 67 for the downside. I'm curious what that would be. I would expect that to be much lower as well, in comparison to the above. So yeah, 32 and a third. So about actually more on par with each other, but still there is a threat of a downside move here. I actually don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think that Bitcoin still is short-term bullish. That was a very good reaction that we saw last night, and then we'll revisit this. But very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, cool. Anyways, still as it is right now, looks like the 4-hour kind of struggling alongside this area, but it will have a chance. It will have a chance in about 2 hours now. But that's a goddamn eternity in cryptocurrency land. Now, if we do see this 4-hour end below 7,400, this could turn into it could start to really turn into distribution, especially for the wedge bros out there. They're going to be absolutely creaming their pants. I'm not a big wedge fan. I don't really see them play out all that often, but something like this is what you'd be looking toward. The volume signature does work. We are descending from left to right for the people in the TA program. It looks good there, but I don't trust wedges all that much. They don't have a good hit rate. They don't have a very good hit rate. But if Bitcoin did start to actually really struggle to close any 4-hour lows above this region, that would be pretty solid. All right, what else do we want to look at? Let's go check out traditional markets. Let's go look at Japan. Japan up on the day. Looks like another upside try to meet. Japan looks like next area about actually 20,000 even. Somewhere around 20,000 it should get a try there. Momentum also is turning back up. I do like that, although I don't trust them as much in traditional. Daily Jewel is giving a continuation halt or your long signal right there. Some more aggressive traders will look at that as even an entry signal as well, especially off the 21. I think that that's actually a fair assessment, especially after this higher low was printed right here. Could we make a higher high above this guy right here? If that does happen at about 20,000, I would look to send this all the way to 20,500. It looks like. Let's go look at E mini futures. Holding the 21 still valiantly as well. As long as it's above the 21, this is looking like an Adam and Eve bottom right here, a very sloppy one, but it is in, and I would be looking for a move all the way up to 20, a little bit above 2,800. It looks like. Let's see how that aligns with SPY, as SPY did kind of play off the same sort of downwards move that Bitcoin did into the late hours, kind of led it to the downside. Let's see what happens today. It's a game. It's a game of two trend lines right now. To the downside, 253.5. To the upside, just yesterday's high, whichever one happens first. If this one takes out yesterday's high first, I'd look for this one to rise back all the way to about 284, 285 region. If this one takes out the downside first, if it even just takes out not yesterday's low, but the low before that, that should confirm this as a local high. And if this is a local high, then we will have hidden bearish divergence between this point and this point, and I'd be looking for a move all the way back down at the very least to about 252.5, 253 even, and that's going to start to make this look like a wedge. The problem with a wedge in traditional markets is that they actually do tend to play out. They actually have a lot more of a hit rate in traditional markets. So with that said, if it did come back down around here, I would look for an initial bounce, but I'd look for that bounce to be sold into. Maybe the bounce brings it back up to like, low 260, something like that. But this would clearly look like redistribution right here. And with momentum also just kind of getting a little bit hotter towards the upside of this region, would not look all that well. So it's going to be a waiting game here. And I would expect Bitcoin and traditional markets to operate together, as we've shown many times before. I won't go through that right now. You are more than welcome to look at the Twitter thread for that. So I don't have to fucking lose my mind saying when hedge once again. But these moves very, 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 very similar, I do think. I do think that looking at traditional markets, it actually is a little bit more relatable to think that we could have actually bottomed here. So even if it does break the rising wedge to the downside, I would look for another move back down to like 230 or 235. But I do think that it could have one of those like U-shaped bottoms longer term. So I would still keep an open mind with that. But we're just kind of focusing on the short-term timeframes right now. So again, if it takes out this low right here from the 6th at 256 or 257, I would look for extension all the way down to 252. We'll call it 252, and actually 252. I would look for a small bounce at 252, and then this is going to start to look like a rising wedge, and I'd look for that to break down overall into the mid to low 230s. By the same token, if we take out yesterday's high, that's the obvious one to the upside, back up to like 283, 285 region. Nice little trade right there, especially considering that's a $8 to $10 move on a $275 number. And looking at E-mini futures, it is looking like it is going to have another attempt to the upside. E-mini looks a little bit more bullish than SPY spot, but the thing is that E-mini futures or futures in general are notorious for painting fake outs. And if this one turns back down, I'd expect Bitcoin to turn back down as well, is my general thought process here. But until that happens, if we even move past back above like 275, I would look for extension essentially to mid to low 280s. Looks good to me. And perhaps even more on top of that, but at least a small pullback, probably somewhere right around 285, I'd imagine. And like I said, world markets, Japan, I think Japan's following here though, but if Japan can take out this prior high from 24th of March, that should be good enough for the rest of the markets to work their way higher as well. What else do we want to look at? Maybe gold for a quick second here. Gold putting in a little bit of a local high, probably going to play out a little bit of short-term downside to low 1600, 1610, 1620, I do think. But long-term, I still like it long-term as long as it's closing weeklies above 1570, we'll call it 1569 if you want to be cute with it. What else do we want to look at while we're playing around here? Maybe GBTC really quick. I didn't check out GBTC yesterday. GBTC getting rejection around the weekly 200. That is a little bit concerning here. GBTC daily looking a lot more bearish than Bitcoin as well. I do not like this at all. In fact, a monstrosity of hidden bearish divergence between this point and this point as well. That is problematic. But we'll see. If GBTC came back down to like 720, that would be completely fine. That would bring Bitcoin spot back down to the low 6,000s and really change around this picture as well. So I would, while my bias boner is more to the upside just because we're closer to the resistance here, I do think that the threat of the downside is still very much there, and I'd still be just be going off these blue boxes to kind of outline that bias. But for right now, getting rejected from the top side once again at about a little bit above 7,400. As long as we're below there, closing 4-hour dildos, especially, preferably I'd want to see like a 12-hour though, just because it is a big piece of price action. It is hard for me to look for that next move to the upside, but if that were to happen, I would essentially be looking for that. By the same token, if we do come back down below here, I'd look for another retest of about 7,200 region. This is all short-term stuff, so I don't really care too much about it. It's gonna be probably this message will explode after 5 seconds as well, because you know how the short-term moves. But it's not really until we break below 7,100, or even just take out the last 4-hour low, where I start to actually look for this one to come back down, at the very least to about 67 to 6750 on a quick move. Probably a small bounce there, back up to test around low 7,000, and then I look for it to come back down, and then I really look for this one to break down. That's when things start to really align for the downside move. But until that happens, I really can't get too bearish, at the very least until we break 7,100, and realistically below 6750 is where I start to actually, you know, trade for that medium and long-term downside, ultimately targeting once again below 5,000. I do think it is worth mentioning that, you know, I peruse the very illustrious place of Twitter, crypto Twitter, every once in a while, and there's a lot of people like really triumphantly and aggressively, you know, calling bears like stupid once again, which is usually a good sign that usually a good sign that a little bit of reality once again would be good for this market, for an asset that quite literally isn't used for pretty much anything, and for a meme of an event called the halving. The funny thing about the halving is that we've all known about it ever since the beginning of eternity, and if you've known about it, then that means that everyone else has. It's public information. All you have to do is quick Google search. Everyone on their fucking mother is talking about it. Pomp is probably saying it in his sleep, and that means that everyone knows about it. So if everyone's known about it for a long time, then it's also relevant to make the assumption that we've all been making well, trades in accordance with that over the long period of time as well. I mean, if you've been doing that, if you've been buying Bitcoin because hashtag halving or whatever the fuck, then why wouldn't someone else be doing it? We're all human beings. We're all kind of operating off the same, you know, mental space. So it, you know, as a market mover, you have to kind of come into the market with that sort of interpretation. And that's why I don't think it's a big deal. Anyways, Bitcoin coming down a little bit harder now. 73.50 once again. Now, still not a big deal for me. Needs to break one of these areas for me to feel confident either which way. Now, we should do one thing before I go, as it is only 36 minutes in, only 36. Let's go through the lower term time frame momentum oscillators and kind of judge what would have to be done, what would kind of outline with a little bit more immediate bearish picture as Bitcoin now comes below 73.50. We got 4-hour Stokes coming down, 3-hour Stokes coming down, but weak. Got 2-hour Stokes popping back up, and following it, you can obviously see a trend line coming in right here, getting our last few lows, and hourly going to be up as well. So let's put on the reverse Stoke cross for this one as well. And let's see what it's saying. So for the hourly to cross back down, we have to go back down below 71.50. So that's actually right around our last kind of closing low right here in the short term. So still got some work to do. And we probably end up playing a range between 74 and 71.50. Again, that doesn't change any biases. It doesn't really offer up any sort of real edge for a trade. For a 2-hour, what would we have to do? 7,200. So right around that last local low as well. Funny how that works out. Very good symmetry in this market. 3-hour showing, it's actually considering it up right now, which is kind of funny. No. It's considering it down right now. Yes, obviously, and it will cross back up to the upside if Bitcoin closes above 7,400. So interesting. That's obviously the next major area for the upside as well. What about the 4-hour? Oh, what do you know? 74.06.5 is where it crossed back up to the upside. Very, 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 very interesting. So I do like all of that for Confluence, and really outlines my bias that, hey, if Bitcoin does start to really close 4-hour dildos, especially above like 74.50, we'll call it, I would look for that move up here. Until it does do that, I just look for a range between 74 and 71.50, we'll call it now. And I don't really get even short-term bearish. Short-term bearish is the wrong term. Just looking for some short-term downside, like some tradable downside, until we actually go back down below 7,100 on, you know, a 2-hour dildo closing basis. Target to move back down here towards 67.50. That's where the downside really does start to get interesting once again. So I'll leave you off with that. I'm gonna go eat a shit ton of steak, which I'm really, really looking forward to, and then Twitch time, baby, because what else is there in life to do? All right, take care, and until next time, wishing you well as always, and see you soon.